everybody? It's your girl Sis-Lo, and this is another newsworthy update. Baby, today I will be giving my commentary on the movie Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul. And honey, when I tell you that this movie commentary is going to be one of those that are very, very, very close and dear to my heart. Okay. Now, I will be giving you not only a commentary from the perspective of the movie, but I am going to give you a perspective from various different angles. Okay. One angle will be, like I said, it will be from the perspective of the movie. Another would be allegedly from the perspective of whom the movie was allegedly loosely based on. And the other would be a perspective that is based on my own experiences as a first lady or a pastor's wife. So, give me a second and we'll get right into it. Okay, I'm sorry I had to go wet my whistle. You heard. So, let's get into this, guys. So, the movie opens up, and one of the very first things I kind of try to take some notes to kind of like keep me on track a little bit, but I'm pretty sure I will digress as I usually do because sometimes I get ahead of myself. So, charge to my head and absolutely not my heart. So, first of all, I would say that the movie starts out and it starts with a um angle that the first lady, who is played by the phenomenal um oh god, why did I forget that girl's name quick? Regina Hall. And the pastor is portrayed by not other than Mr. Sterling Brown. So, um the movie starts out with the church, with the first lady in the church, and you will see that she's sitting down talking to um a camera because her husband decided that it would be a good idea to document the return of the church. And I want to say that this is a spoiler alert, so if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to know anything about it, then you might not want to hear this commentary. Okay. So the lady starts out, Regina comes in, or her character comes in um with um the first lady sitting in the church, um talking about her husband. And if you would kind of, and she's kind of talking about the elephant in the room, which is the scandal, or the sex scandal, that her husband was involved in, regarding some young men uh, at the church, allegedly, and the fact that he had paid off some people in the church, and as a result of the scandal, lost his congregation and pretty much their bread and butter. So, with that great falling away from the church, they decide after a year or so that it was time to come back and reopen the church and restart the ministry. So, one of the things that she says is that, well, you know how a rat is on the outside of a wall and he tries to get outside of the house and he tries to get in, he gnaws his way in, and that's what we're going to kind of do. We're going to gnaw our way through this, but not that we're rats, quote unquote. But what happens is, not only um is she trying to give an account of something that her husband has done, but once again, she is trying to fix or smooth over some of the things that he is accused of doing, and some of the dealings that have been going on at the church. So as you will go through the movie, you will see that oftentimes one of the things that she's done is she's always been there to try to fix things, to make things better. But you will notice that she is one of those women that have gone above and beyond the call of duty for her man. I mean, she has put herself, even if it makes her look like a fool. You'll find her smoothing over and, okay, honey, I'll just run and do this. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, you're such a cutie. She makes excuses to try to make, and she tries to make him look better by smoothing over the things that that to fix his errors or his isms, so to speak. And then when it shows the pastor, it shows him with a clip of him preaching. And so he's preaching about prosperity, but everything is about him. Everything is totally about him. He's talking about, look at me. Don't I look good? Don't I look prosperous? You see that rolls outside, you see the airplanes. That wasn't me. That was coming because of my hard work. So he often takes God out of the equation, inserts himself to make himself look glorified, and then so he preaches this message of prosperity and blessings, and these things that he has acquired over time is supposed to give the likeness that God blessed him because he was so obedient to God's will. So if you give and if you do God's will like I did, you'll get the things that I got. All that you have to do is listen to me. And so he even goes up when they're sitting in the pulpit, like a king and a queen. He sits up and he says, "It's showtime." And that kind of gives the inkling that it's all for show. Everything that he's doing is all for show, which is not a good thing at all, you guys. It's not good. So, and then he goes on, and there's a scene where they're sitting at the table having lunch or breakfast, and he talks about how you know, we're gonna do this and we're gonna fight our way through it and punch, punch, punch like Rocky, and we're gonna come out victorious. And she stops and she thinks about it. She says, Rocky never won. He didn't win that fight. He actually lost to Apollo Creed. And he stops. He think about it. You think about the first movie, baby. We talking about later on when he became victorious. Don't think about the first movie. Cancel out the first movie. Cancel out the first movie to kind of give it like, to make him still look like I know what I'm talking about, kind of thing, or whatever. But she's, when she thinks about it, she's like, oh no, 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 Rocky failed. He didn't succeed. He failed. But she didn't go like that. And then you think about the scandal. He's not at all addressing the scandal. He pays the people off and he kind of sweeps it under the rug. He has no comment to the public, and he kind of blames things on um Everybody else. It's everybody else's fault. I just wanted it to go away, so I just paid them off. It's nothing. It's this. But he never really addresses the elephant in the room. He never really talks about it. So then he goes on to, and there do a scene outside of the church where he steps in some gum, and before you know it, he goes, "Oh, I'm gonna say all shoe because he got gum on the bottom of his shoe." But and then he tries to snap right back and say, "You know what? Listen, I'm not a perfect man. I make mistakes too, and that was an error. And blah blah blah. Forgive me, God. Oh, but look at God. Oh, but look at God. Oh, but look at God." To cover up the fact that he just cussed on camera. And then she comes back and she say, "You know what? Shoot, they probably made Jesus cuss in the temple when they was gambling and stuff. He probably lost his temper too. So we all human." She's smoothing it over yet again. And then they go inside of the church and they go into their dressing room and they show off all of these shoes and they talk about the different purses and the periwinkle bags and the this bag and the that bag and the shoes to match and hats and all of, and everything is about showboating. It's about showing off what they have, the things that they have acquired, and nothing again is centered around God. Has nothing to do with God, but it has everything to do with the things that they have acquired, right? So then they go and they're sitting down and they're talking about, somebody asked them a question about government, the governing of the church. What happened with that? Oh, the pastor says, "Oh, one day God came to me and said that the deacons weren't right. That they were ungodly disciples. So we had to do away with that. No governing board is going to run this church. This church is ran by God. But we know that the real purpose of deacons and a trustee board, a board of trustees, a board of deacons, all of that is there to make sure that the church is ran efficiently and effectively. No church that is ran efficiently is only ran by the pastor, and that's it. There are new ground floor churches that it may take just the pastor, but in any church, even if you, especially if you have a 501c3, any articles of incorporation, anything like that, you have to have a board of directors or some type of board that helps to oversee and make some decisions financially about where the finances of that church and the order of that church, and they have bylaws, and all of these things have to be in place in order for you to become even a faith-based ministry or a 501c3 or have your articles of incorporation. All of those things have to be in place before you can have that. But when you get done and you remove the governing board or the deacon board, that's when you find a pastor, especially a church that size. It's not even healthy for a church, a huge, a multi-member congregation, to have only a pastor running every office. It's not healthy. You need someone that is specializes in finances, that specializes in PR, that is specializing in running the business and contracts and making sure that everything is right. Because guess what? Churches can still be sued. Pastors can still be sued. Different things can happen if someone slips and falls or anything. The church is still liable. So you need someone that can handle those things. And it's difficult when you have hundreds or thousands of members to be able to facilitate a church, to pray for the sick, to preach, to study, to govern yourself accordingly, and do all those things on your own. It's just not even healthy, let alone it's not business, and it can't not be done. It shouldn't be done. So for him to get rid of the deacon board was his way of having total run of the church. Um, the other thing was the fact that they had all of these settlements, allegations, and all of the ridicule that they had to go through, and for none of that to have been addressed. But there should have been like people in place to handle that PR, that handle the settlements, the money, and all of those things. Had someone been in place to even keep him in line, saying, "Okay, Pastor, this is not a good look, or this should be this, or this should be that, or what have you," and then the fact that his wife was so busy trying to keep up a facade to save face and to do whatever her man was telling her to do in order for her to stay in that place. She just bypassed all of the things that he was doing. She knew that her husband was messing around with these boys or men. She knew what was going on with that. She allowed him to cover that up. It even got to the point to where in their own private time, doing the husband and wife intimate things, they weren't even able to function unless he was approaching her from an angle that usually is done with same gender loving men, right? So he couldn't even be intimate with her unless she was in a certain position in the bed. She would ask him, "Can we just do it the regular way?" And it was not possible for him. He couldn't even keep himself in a ready position, or you know what I mean, in a ready situation if they were just doing it regular starfish or what have you. So that even became an issue. Okay. So now she knows that her husband really doesn't have a desire for her. He's trying to go along with it or satisfy his flesh, right? With her, but that's not what he ultimately desires. He desires to be in the intimate company of the same gender. But she goes along with that. Not only because she loves him, but she's accustomed to this style. Okay? She's accustomed to doing things whatever pleases my man, or whatever saves the church, or whatever keeps me in that chair, which is something that she says, "You do what you have to do to stay up there so I can stay up there too." So basically, whatever it takes for me to continue to live the life that I'm living, this is what I want you to do. So then they go to with the particular time that they want to reopen the church, which is around Easter. And some of their congregants, a couple that were also in ministry, decides, okay, this is our time that we're going to open up our church on Easter Sunday. So they go to this couple and say, "Hey, you all can't open your church on that particular day, because we're going to open our church and you came out of our congregation. So y'all going to have to fall back because we need to open up on that day." And so they decide, okay, we're going to go to this couple and approach them about that. And the couple didn't bite. They're like, "No, I'm sorry, but we'll pray for you," and this, that, and the other. Now, what nerve are you going to tell these people who have a couple of thousand people in their membership at this point, and they have a whole big edifice that's been built and opening up and ready to go, and you're going to come to them and say, "Put your service off so we can do our thing"? At this point, you're outside standing on the street corner holding up signs saying, have doing sideshows on the side of the curb to try to get people to come to church, because you don't even have an active congregation. You're trying to persuade people to come in. But that other church has already got an established ministry that has been working on this for some time. And obviously has some sort of upstanding with the community. They're not in any scandalous situation, so they are all set and ready to go with the membership, with the public and everything else. But you have the nerve to come to them and say, "Put it off because we want to do this," and then the other couple seems to be, or gives the, the idea that, okay, this is what we're doing and we're living for the Lord. We're doing this as a ministry to God, but you guys are doing this for showboating, and that's not right. It's just not right. But see, this is where a lot of ministries go off. I have seen over my lifetime, I've been in the church since I've been saved since I was 19 years old. I just made 56 a few days ago. I've been saved a long time. I've been preaching, teaching, and going on about my way. I've had ups and downs. I've been married. I was married to a pastor. He wasn't a pastor when I married and became a pastor. We had children together, raised our children ministry, built ministries from the ground floor. Take we've gone into ministries that was already established and made. I mean, they were hugely successful. But the minute the enemy creeped in, God stepped back. God stepped back. Okay. And that's exactly what will happen. I'm gonna go into that. Obviously, I won't have the whole time to do everything. So there will be a part two to this. Okay. But from the very beginning, this couple has showed more interest in the things that they can acquire materialistically than what they can do for God. Not only that, the husband cared more about himself than he cared about anybody. He was into himself more than he was ever into God. Because if he had been into God, number one, the material things would not have driven him. He would not have gone out of his way to run the church the way he wanted to run it. He would not have gotten involved with a bunch of us people's sons and nephews and grandsons. He would not have gone and caused such a scandal on the church. And if he did, he would have sat himself down and got himself together. And he would have came back in the right way. But he didn't do any of it. What he did was to do everything that he thought he could do to get back in the pulpit so he can showboat. When he got up there and was like, "Showtime," that was enough for me. And then all of the things, what really got me was when he was approached by the young men that he had accosted. When he touched the young men that he had been alleged to have had sexual encounters with, when they came to him face to face, he still couldn't be honest and tell the truth. And then to add insult to injury, he used his wife as a sideshow. He had this woman mime paint on her face to stand on the side of the road. That's after putting up a black Jesus with dreadlocks up to draw attention. This woman stood out with what my daddy would have said was a clown suit and brought herself to shame. And all he could continue to do was beat on his chest and say, "Me, me, 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 me." And it wasn't until then that she realized no matter what she did, it would never be enough. It would never be enough. It would never be enough for so many reasons. One, it would never be enough because he was not doing it for the right reasons. He wasn't doing it for God. Number two, it would never be enough because nothing came before himself. Three, it would never be enough because he didn't even desire to be with a woman. And last but not least, it would never be enough because he didn't even recognize her. He used her. She was his cover girl in every way. She fixed things for him. She critiqued his sermons. She covered for him. She lied for him. She she was just everything to him, but she was a personal assistant. She wasn't a wife. She was a showpiece. She allowed him to acquire all of the things that he desired out of that office that he played as pastor. And that's what he did. He played pastor on TV. Period. Because nothing behind the scenes, absolutely nothing behind the scenes, gave any inkling that he was a true man after God's own heart. It was all for naught. That's all I'm going to have time for. But I'll be back with a part two. Trust and believe it. And that's when you're going to hear a little bit more about my personal views on how this went. This has been your girl, Sis-Lo. And this is a very newsworthy update. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and support this channel. Trying to reach my 1,000, y'all, and I'm going to do it by the help of the Lord. And guess what? I'm still celebrating my birthday. So support me, support the channel, drop some financial support by sending it to my Cash App, $ SISLO. And guess what? I love you on purpose. Ain't nothing you can do about it. And until later on, I never say goodbye because it's too permanent. So I just say later for now. I holla.